So here, let's start off with the first one. Now, why we looked at starting with the first unit is because when you're looking at doing a qualification at level 3, which is primarily to do with stepping into higher education, what we want to be able to do is at some stage, start off with some basic fundamentals of how you're going to be looking at researching and studying this qualification. Now, there are a few skills which are required to be developed at a very early stage. And these skills tend to be, skills which you will use. When I say skills, because this will give you the relevant information and knowledge to be able to, do assignments and also to collect data. And obviously, then at some stage, when you've collected data, convert that into information, and then that information you put across in assignments as academic writing to meet the tasks. So this unit, is looking at helping you to understand what is the area of research, why do we look at research, why English language skills are quite important, because when we look at English in particular, when we look at higher education, we're looking at writing, using English, which is going to be used for writing, and that is going to be academic writing. That means you're looking at, making use of different forms of data which can be collected either from the website, the books, the journals, and when you have to concise and put that information across into your own work, you need language skills, and those language skills are called the academic writing skills. And this unit is going to be focusing on helping you to develop these two basic skills which kind of form the foundation of when you start to study, or when you begin to study for higher education. So research, why is it important? How do we do research? What are research skills? And second is, when we look at language skills, in specific written language skills, we will look at how do we look at academic writing and the importance of referencing in particular, because sometimes when you take text from books, journals, websites, you're looking at taking somebody else's work, but when you include that in your own work and write to accomplish, say, for example, a task or a specific criteria, in this case, you're looking at giving credit to the author who has originally produced that text or piece of work, and that requires referencing. So we look at these aspects in this important unit of academic and research skills for business. Now we are focused on business because you're studying business and management as a course, so we don't want to be looking at research in general as a topic. We don't want to be looking at academic skills in general as a topic. We want to be looking at specifically tailoring them towards the business and management area, which is what your course of study is going to be. So in the first unit, I've opened up the first presentation. What we looked at was, before even we get into understanding research and academic skills, what we want to be able to do is do our own assessment first. And this own assessment is basically covered in what is called the Learning Outcome 1. And here it is asking you to talk, it's a practical unit. So in the first part of this learning outcome, it is asking you to primarily look at assessing your own academic strengths and weaknesses and this has to be done primarily in the field of English language skills, because we are looking at developing these skills to be able to do assessments, assignments, tasks or activities which are given when you study courses in higher education. So it could be a form of an exam, a report, or an output in terms of a PowerPoint presentation that you produce. But when you produce that, you're looking at specifically focusing on your written language skills, and that is why we want to look at English language skills. So here, what we've done is, in the first couple of slides, I've put together some definitions of key terms, things like what is an academic competency. So when we look at academic skills and we say competencies, we say strengths and weaknesses. What do you mean by academic competencies? So academic competencies here means skills that you can utilize to accomplish a piece of work, and that requires you to have knowledge or having access to documents or information which can be pooled together from a number of resources, and that will allow you to, accomplish a particular task. Now, these things could be, when I talk about things like critical thinking, sometimes you say that, I have skills, I'm quite hardworking, I'm passionate, I'm quite diligent, I'm quite honest, I'm straightforward, transparent. These are what are called your personal skills. So you're talking about your personality, you're talking about what shapes your personality. But when we have to talk about skills, when we look at it from a study perspective, from an academic point of view, you will talk about skills which will help you accomplish some of these tasks that are given in the class, or are given in your assignments, or are a part of your assessments that you do when you study in university or higher education. So these skills tend to be what are called the academic competencies or academic skills, and they tend to be skills like problem solving skills, critical thinking. You're able to utilize information from different sources and come to meaningful conclusions. You know how to operate a PC, or you have good working knowledge of Microsoft Office. You're able to communicate effectively. If you are in a set of audience, say for example in a class, and you have a number of colleagues, and you're able to build a bit of a rapport with them in order to understand them, where they come from, and put your points across and participate in a meaningful discussion, then this tends to portray that you have good communication skills. That means you are able to understand the other person or people in that room, and with that information you're able to process it and then respond back, which allows you to take into account other competencies that you have. Things like, if in a class, in a school, for example, your teacher is going to ask you what is 16 times 6. Now the answer is 96, but because you're able to calculate that answer, you have mathematical or numeracy skills that allows you to interpret the question which your teacher has asked. With the interpretation of that question, you are able to then respond back with the answer, and that utilizes numeracy skills that you have, which is mathematical skills, and that allows you to give that answer across to your teacher. So when you look at all these things, what we are looking at is you're making use of a lot of different types of competencies, and those competencies when we look at are competencies which are related to your academic rigor, or your qualification, or your previous educational background, which allow you to comprehend this. So some of the key terms you need to understand, so that we know exactly what we are looking at doing when we study this unit. Now, when we talk about academic skills, let's also look at personal skills. So I gave you an example earlier of personal skills, that when you say, if you have to introduce yourself and you say, I'm so and so, and I have this and I've done that, and then at some stage you go down to your things, and you kind of list out. When I say things, you list out key skills which form your personality. So when you say personal skills, that is skills which are primarily related, or attributed to the character or the personality or your traits that you have, and it basically provides an insight into who you are actually as a person. Now, personal skills can be divided into two types. It is hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills are defined as skills which can be taught. That means you're able to learn and adapt or pick up these skills over a point in time, and they are generally done through some sort of teaching, or attending a training or a class, or attending a session. So currently what I'm doing right now as a session with you with regards to teaching and delivering information about the course and this particular unit is a skill that you're going to pick up, which is a hard skill, because you're learning about what is academic and research skills as a unit. And this is something which is being taught to you in a classroom-based setting, using training material, books, presentation slides that we are using right now, and these are called hard skills. Now, another example could be a foreign language, or a language that you want to learn. So, for example, you want to learn French, German, or Spanish. You might have to attend or take classes, have a tutor who would then help you develop these language skills. Start off with basic alphabets, grammar, and then slowly and gradually help you develop skills wherein you are able to converse in that language. So hard skills in general require teaching abilities. That means you have to have some classes or some training or some coaching to be able to pick up these skills. Soft skills tend to be a combination of skills which people can actually develop on their own, and this can be developed owing to their personality, the behavior, the attributes they have, and to a certain extent the environment in which they actually work, or say for example meet other people. So these are skills that you are able to develop with a combination of things which is in and around people, environment, or the environment in general that you are in, and they define what is called, they are basically defined primarily related to the character or the personality of the individual. Now these skills sometimes tend to be skills which can help you perform better in a work environment, or achieve a particular goal, because they are related to self. That means they are more related to yourself in terms of your personality and your background, and basically related to the culture or background that you come from. So when I say soft skills, sometimes you get to hear people when they say that he's very soft spoken, or this person is quite patient. He's generally very confident. Now, when you look at these kind of statements, or hear these kind of statements, these are primarily statements being made because somebody has generally observed your personality, how you behave in an environment with people, and then they have attributed these, or looked at these attributes which are then related to you as an individual or your personality, and they tend to be soft skills. Now, in the first task, we are looking at assessing our strengths and weaknesses, basically related to the academic skills. So in this first task, what you have to do is you have to basically look at doing a SWOT analysis, and we provided you a bit of a template. Now this SWOT analysis is primarily going to be in the area of English language skills. So I'm not looking at you filling this column up or a table up to say that my strengths are, I'm good in communication, I'm this and that. That is personal. No, we don't want personal. Here we want your skills which are related to English language in general. So when I say English language, there are 4 parts to it. You have reading, writing, speaking, and communicating. So when you look at that, your strengths could be, I'm good at communication. But how would you assess you're good at communication? You have to write and do, back that up. When you write that as a strength, you have to back it up with some sort of an evidence. So here, what I would suggest you to do is, this is a link to a test that you can do to check your English language ability skills, and this is on the British Council website. So what I would suggest is you need to go and take this test. It's a combination of multiple choice questions with fill-in blanks and other bits, and it is comprising of 25 questions. Will take about 10 to 12 minutes or 15 minutes, and at the end of it, when you start the test, at the end of 25 questions, it will give you a result. And when it gives you a result, you have to take a screenshot of that result, and that screenshot of that result will allow to basically say what level of English you have. So this will then help you. If I look at just to give you an idea, this will then help you, just as an example like this will then help you to write or populate your strengths and weaknesses regarding your English language skills into this particular SWOT analysis. Because when you take the test, this is going to be a combination of questions which will be related to reading, writing, speaking and communicating, or listening in this case, and these results of this test will allow you to determine your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threat that you see that you need to develop or have in relation to the English language skills. This is the first task that you have to look at in order to assess your own academic competence. Now, the second bit that we want to do, which is the second task in particular in this, would be to look at how do you set targets for improvement. Now, as an example, you see in this particular case, this learner, when he's taken the test, his English comes out to be at intermediate level, which is, say, according to the Common European Framework, level B1. Now, he, in order to progress to university or higher education, like first year of uni, will need to have at least a B2 level of English. Now, if the results are given that you have a lower level than what is required, then at some stage what you will need to do is set improvement targets. So when we set improvement targets basis self-assessment, which you've done right now in English, what we use is something called SMART targets. And these SMART targets tend to be, SMART actually is an acronym which starts or stands for, something like S stands for specific, M is measurable, E is achievable, R is realistic, and T is time bound. Now, what you're looking at doing is you're trying to set some specific targets for, improving your English language skills. And here, when we look at setting a self-assessment target, you have to use SMART as a terminology to be able to do this. And this will allow you to set something which is specific, which you can measure, you can achieve, and it is appropriate. But so say for example, if your result on English would have been say A2 level, which is like beginner's English. Now from beginner's English, you cannot go to B2 level in 3 months time or in 6 months time. You have to be realistic in terms of setting a time frame. So when you set that time frame, you have to have realistic goals that this is something that I can achieve. You have to provide say 3 to 4 months or 3 to 6 months for each level that you want to improve. And from going from A2, you have to go to say, for example, B1, and then you go to B2. So you're technically looking at traversing 2 levels, and that would mean that you need 6 to 9 months time to be able to improve that. So you have to put realistic timelines which will allow you to achieve these goals. And what I've done as a template is provided an example of that if your goal is to using a SMART template, if your goal is to I want to build better relationships within my team, then how can this be defined as specific, measurable, attainable, or achievable, realistic or relevant, and then time bound, is by answering these specific questions. So when you say specific, we are looking at who, what, when, why, where. So you answer these questions and you put some of these tasks or objectives down, and then look at how do you measure them. So what specific things or goals you will have to complete to say that I've achieved this. So if I say encourage two-way communication with employees, that means at some stage you have to be in a position to be able to mediate within employees or with employees if there are situations wherein communication is not happening. And that would mean that you would look at certain initiatives or steps like a monthly newsletter, which can be sent across to employees. Say, for example, some weekly meetings, which you can do on Fridays or Mondays to get all the employees talking to each other and, as a team working together to achieve goals and objectives. So these are things or tangible steps that you're trying to put, which will allow you to achieve a better communication between employees. And then how do you prioritize them? You're prioritizing them by having weekly meetings or, monthly reviews. And those are steps that you're going to try and take, which will help you achieve those goals. Why they are relevant? Because if I say, okay, I'll hold a coffee shop or a coffee morning, for the employees. Now, that might have some logic behind why you want to hold a coffee shop or a coffee morning for the employees. Because what you want to do is you want to get the employees talking. So that goal is relevant. Yes. But if I say I want to organize an outing to go and see, for example, or have a dress down day, for the Halloween coming up on the 31st, how is that going to be relevant to driving better communication amongst employees? You will have to explain that or relate it to the objective that you're setting. So that means you're putting up tasks or goals which are going to be relevant to achieve that two-way communication. And at the end of it, say if you've defined a total timeline of conducting these events and ensuring that this will get the employees talking, at some stage you will say that, okay, after 3 months I will review, or after 6 months I will review, or after a year I will review. At some stage when you do that review, you have to be putting some timeline in place to say that this is something which I've achieved, this particular goal or activity has been completed, and that has led to this better result or this better communication. So how would you review it is something when you put some sort of a timeline to it, and that timeline will allow you to carry out an assessment to say that yes, something which I started off has now been achieved because of the fact that this is something which allows us to, or has allowed me to, complete or achieve that activity. So in your case, you could also look at a SMART goal to say, when you look at English language skills, your SMART goal could be to look at, things like, I want to finish this course in 3 months' time, 6 months' time. What are the specific objectives? How you are going to measure them? What objectives you are going to put, or goals or timelines you are going to put, and how they are going to be attained, and why is it, and how is it going to be relevant? So, for example, I'll finish off one unit, then go to the second, and you put some timelines next to it to define, these SMART goals that you have to, look at in this particular, activity. The last in this task that we covered was a merit-based activity to say how do you develop a plan to show your targets have been achieved or will be achieved. So this is stretching what you've done as a SMART target, but in this case, what you have to look at is develop this template of SMART targets into something called a personal development plan. And when we say the personal development plan, here what we are looking at is that when we say the personal development plan, you're actually making or preparing a document which is called the working document, which will show how you monitor, manage, and progress your personal development in and around the area of say a major goal. Now that could be that you want to look at completing a bachelor's degree in 3 to 5 years time. But this is a long-term plan, and when you document this, SMART plans or SMART using the template of SMART targets is primarily going to be short-term, 3 to 6 months or 6 to 9 months. But when you look at a long-term plan, which is 12 months, 18 months, 3 years, 36 months, you look at developing something called a personal development plan or PDP. And this then tends to be a plan that you monitor, review, and update from time to time to say how you're progressing on that plan. So for achieving the merit, you will have to develop something like a PDP, and I put up a template here for you. And it talks about certain things like what are my development goals, how do you prioritize them, because you might have lots of objectives and goals, but at some stage you will need to prioritize them to say that this is the important goal or this is the more important objective. And then what are the activities you undertake to achieve it, what resources do you require, and then what are the dates by which you want to achieve them. At least put a planned date of achievement, and then the actual date on which you think you've achieved. Now sometimes I say a personal goal for me is to run the 10K marathon in Manchester. Now I've been kind of training up for this, where I cannot go and run the 10K mile or the Manchester Marathon, which happens just out of the blue. I need to prepare for it and get into a routine, and there are lots of activities which go into preparing you up. So for me, I put this as a target that I want to do this in say 2020 next year. Now for that, I put a 12 to 18 month plan in place, which is to say regulating my diet, looking at putting on some muscle, looking at workouts, looking at working with professional trainers who are able to run with you as colleagues, because it is a long and it's a big target. So, and the other thing is I want to cover it in less than 2 hours. So when you look at these things, you have to put some specific targets to it to be able to measure that. Now, can I run a kilometer first in under 5 or 7 minutes? If not, then how will I run a 10K within an hour? That won't be possible. So these timelines and targets have to be set, and then as and when each of these activities you're completing, I'm saying, okay, I want to be able to run 5 miles under half an hour. Now, if I can achieve that target by say March next year, that will allow me to, that means I'm on course to try and achieve running the 10K under an hour. So if those things, in the recent news, if you saw, the person who ran the marathon, I think he's the first Kenyan in the world, or first person in the world who's a Kenyan who's run some marathon under 2 hours. So his name has gone into history. Now, the reason why he's done that, it's not happened overnight. So he has put some sort of a developmental plan in place for 2 years, 3 years training, and all those things that now help him to, achieve that at the end of the day. So those kind of things have to be long term. And when you look at long term, you need to look at developing something called the personal development plan. And this is what will help you achieve the merit in the first learning outcome. Is that okay?
Yes. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
So that is something that you would need to look at, primarily covering in the first learning outcome with regards to